All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So, with the Undermined update, Oberon got his rework, and I have been delaying it some time to see if maybe we might get some more buffs. Because the Oberon rework is better than Oberon was, but for those of you that watched my tier list, you'll know that I had Oberon in D tier. So if that wasn't the case, we would have much larger problems. But Oberon still has quite a few rough things about him, and we're going to talk about it. First and foremost, though, let's talk about the shards that we are running, because they actually matter a ton this time. So we have 3 Tau orange shards, topaz shards, for each 15% ability damage on enemies that are affected by radiation status. These are kind of patently required to make things work better on him, especially without a subsume, unfortunately. So you're kind of going to need these if you want his abilities to do stuff. In addition, we have a casting speed shard. This is much less necessary, but it certainly is nice because his 4 still takes quite a while to cast. And we have an equilibrium shard on here, which also is not useful for the build that we ended up going with, but is like fine always as an addition, especially if you decide to change around to some other things that you can build him towards. For that, the build looks like this. This is where we are with the build currently. We are on just battery equilibrium for just energy economy stuff. It is worth noting that this can be swapped out if you do have Fallout. You can do Fallout and primed flow here, and that's just fine. And then the equilibrium shard is a lot better because it just gives you more consistency with all the health orbs you can be picking up at that point. But those are 2 options for the energy economy stuff. Other than that, we need a ton of strength and a ton of range and some duration. The some duration, of course, coming from prime continuity, as it almost always does, and the range coming from overextended and stretch and augur reach. The strength, we're on blind rage, transient fortitude, power drift, umbral intensify, kind of the usual suspects there as well. And growing power is also here, though much of the time it's like, kind of neither here nor there what this is adding on. And finishing off our strength, once augmented is built up, we are just over 300% strength. And he needs pretty much all of that strength. Unfortunately, he can't use it all because he is capped in one way but not another on his first ability. He can do up to 75% of the target he hits with it. It'll do as just direct damage to them. The lower number here, this 25.3, is the radial damage as percent from that enemy. That needs 300% strength to max out at its cap, which is 30%. That is really, really low. Pre-release, whenever we got like the notes for this rework, we thought that the radial damage was going to be 50%, which sounded really good. Instead, its base number is 10%, which is terribly, terribly low. The other thing that's worth noting as a really big negative that's going to come up a lot on this ability is that these percentages are of current health, not max health, which means that without additional modifiers, this ability functionally can't kill outside of the very small initial damage that it does have. That's all not great. But the additional damage modifiers come in with the different multiplier of the Tau shards that we have on for the plus 45%, meaning that if you just do the math, the 75% plus the multiplier of the plus 45% means that if an enemy does have a radiation proc on them, when you're at 75%, it will just kill the target that you hit with Smite, which is good to start. We're also using Roar to try and get those numbers up even more. Roar is another multiplier that is multiplicative with the Tau shards to try and make it so that at least more often this low radial damage can get some kills going. That is also, because this is not a true damage, it is radiation damage, going to need to be combined with the armor strip from Reckoning, which is a 100% armor reduction. Because if you encounter any armored enemies, this will pretty much do nothing to anything except for the main target, which is not great. Other than that, we're on Renewal. Renewal with its armor bonus and Year 4 with its armor bonus help build up battery so we can have over 1,000 energy. And we are going to be using an absolute ton of energy because just like the basic combo of what you're doing to any given group of enemies with this, with Reckoning plus Smite, is about 200 energy. And you're going to want to do that to every group if you're trying to damage enemies with his abilities. Now, to get it out of the way to start, yes, you can build Oberon differently and totally forego dealing any damage at all with his abilities, and usually build him just the way where you are going to build for Smite Infusion and just damage boost with this, and then use Roar and damage boost with this, and then just shoot enemies with a gun. The problem is that build doesn't do anything else. And there are so many better Warframes to just shoot an enemy with a gun with, so we're instead going to show off the thing that's unique to Oberon, which is trying to like do smite AoE kills and stuff. If you wanted to just smite infusion and make a day of it, you could just remove overextended, put smite infusion there instead, and probably also remove augur reach or stretch, one or the other. You want at least some range still for your 4 if you're going to have it be any kind of a reasonable armor strip. And you can build him that way and then just shoot enemies with the turret and pretend that Oberon's fine. But the other stuff that he brings to the table in that build is just about nothing. He has an armor strip, and his 3 is health regen and some armor. Health regen and some armor don't really matter. Health tanking is not particularly good, and it's certainly not really going to be a credit to your team. The real thing that is a credit to your team and better for Oberon's total survivability is one of the best things in this rework, which is his new passive. His new passive is that whenever you pick up a health orb, you get a mini Revenant stack, and you and all of your allies in affinity range get that Revenant stack. So if you're consistently picking up tons and tons of health orbs, then you are going to be functionally invulnerable, just like Revenant is, and also any of your allies in affinity range will also be invulnerable. This basically gives you a way to not have to health tank, which is, of course, what all of the health tanks want to do, is not have to do it. So that's much better for survivability. Now, but I want to clarify, before we leave this menu, and before all of the comments on the YouTube video go, you hate Oberon. I don't hate Oberon, and he is better than he was. Just to clarify that again, he's better than he was, which was a D-rank Warframe. But the limitations placed on his ability to do damage are nonsensical in the concept of, like, Warframe today. It does not make sense that, like, all of these modifiers, plus Roar, plus everything else, like, just doesn't work out in the vast majority of situations. And that's not to say that there are not situations where it does work out. Because if I wanted to clip farm and post TikTok clips and edit heavily on this video, I could show you an Oberon that looks crazy. I could let Deathcube prime these enemies with Viral. I could activate Roar, and then these all Xmas Dedicant that you just saw in, like, the last video die fairly quickly to this, right? I didn't armor strip them, so no, they don't. I could show you this with the other step that he has to take on top, where you take all these enemies and you prime them with everything, and then you use your 4, and then you use your 1, and then that kills them all. Right? Like, that looks pretty good. These enemies have a lot of health. But these abilities are all line of sight restricted, number 1. And because it's percent scaling, and because these modifiers are affecting it, whenever you have a bunch of Exami, it will kill them because of the way that it scales. But the problem is whenever you get to more normal enemies. If we take, like, let's say, for example, let's not do Corrupted Lancers. They're resistant to radiation. They won't die. But if we take, like, Arid Lancers, we're going to take, like, 5 Arid Lancers, right? 5 Arid Lancers, and we won't let Deathcube prime them because that kills anything. In fact, I think Deathcube himself will just kill them if we let him do that. If we take these enemies and we Roar and then use our 1, this is the damage that we're getting. Right? If we use our 4 to armor strip them, and Roar's still on, and we use our 1, this is what's happening to these enemies. And it's current health, as a reminder, so they're still not dead. And this is what's going to actually occur all the time in so many missions, where you will go into a room and you will use your 4, slam all the enemies into the ground. You'll scan the room to see who has the most current health. You'll have Roar up. You'll use your 1 on them. Deathcube will have primed them, and a bunch of enemies will survive. And 3 mooks who just walked into the room, like, after you used your 4 that are armored, will pretend they didn't see any of that shit as you kill, like, 5 enemies. And it is so colossally disappointing to use. It is so unfortunate that this Warframe needs a special Deathcube build where it's going to prime not only Viral, but also Radiation and Electricity for crowd control, and also use the benefit of Deathcube having Deconstruct to generate more health orbs, because you're going to be so health orb hungry all of the time. It is 1,000 hoops to jump through to do something that Atlas can do by pressing 1 once. A couple of times, once he's built up. There's an initial 5 presses you need to do before all the enemies just explode. And it's not even just Atlas. It's any number of good Warframes that I can like give you, like Sevagoth, you know, like just any number of other Warframes, like of course Korra and like any of the Exalted Warframes, really, Gara. All of them can do it and also provide more to the team. If you compare what is being provided to the team, because Oberon's a support, Dante or Styanax exist, giving infinite overguard to the whole team and or like tremendous amounts of energy, and both of those Warframes do like very good damage in the case of Styanax and intensely good damage in the case of Dante. There are so many things you could do instead that are so much better. And that is the thing here, is that I don't know why Oberon's 1 and 4 are not allowed to do damage. Because you could, unironically, put a modifier on both Smite and on Reckoning, where you double the damage the enemies take from the ability for each radiation proc that is on them. And at 10 radiation stacks, by the way, that is a 1,024 damage multiplier. And Reckoning would do like 1.5 million damage to all the enemies in line of sight that have 10 radiation stacks on them. And that would be fine. Because the amount of setup needed to get the radiation stacks on them is either you put your 2 under them and let it sit for a second and then use your 4, or you use some outside source like Death Cube, Tazakor dupe, in order to prime a bunch of enemies so that you can more regularly get that effect. Like, letting him do 1,000 times more damage with a little bit of setup would make him, like, fine in terms of damage output. He wouldn't even be gracing, like, what Ashe is capable of. Ashe, who is like a mid-rank Warframe, can look at a given enemy and just be like, you, 20 million damage, true damage, directly to your fucking face. But Oberon, like, just doesn't get to do that. He needs 1,000 hoops. 1,000 hoops to do the same thing as a Warframe that most people consider to be a little clunky. Which is just unfortunate. And that's not to mention that Radiation is one of the most commonly resisted damage types. If you're going to run him through fissures, you know, one of those things that most of us run all the time, the corrupted enemies are radiation resistant. So this combo, even with all these multipliers, is normally not going to work almost at all without the viral procs. So like in this case, on the heavy gunner, look who survives. All of the heavies survive this, even when you target like the enemy with the most health. And this is with like everything going on, like 2 huge percentage multipliers that most Warframes don't even dream of even interacting with because they already work. So yeah, we're gonna take this through the Kuva Fortress where the enemies are not resistant to radiation, to clarify, and just show how it does in a normal mission. And some people in the comments are going to be happy just shooting dudes and having health regen from his 3, and that's fine. To the Kuva Fortress. It's so unfortunate. The poor goat boy. Oh yeah, you know, there's a thing. I'm gonna turn chat back on. You guys can... No alerts, but I'll turn chat back on for this. Because it'll be more interesting than what Oberon's up to. This is so depressing to see. It's really unfortunate. There's just no reason for Oberon to be limited like this.
Then steal their Kuva catalysts. Predictable. As expected, Grineer have shut down the environmental systems.
There's really space or reason for the augments too. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can put his 1 augment in, and that's just fine. To get some energy back here, just be through gunning. This hallway. That enemy was unarmored, killed like 5 guys. Obviously, it's not allowed to like be not line of sight checked. I'm gonna get out DPS to buy my utility Death Cube. I can feel it. Throw my 3 on. Couple guys. And reminder, it's 200 energy every time I cast my 4 and then my 1. Yeah, these enemies weren't caught by my 4. That enemy had low health, so all these armor stripped guys that are primed even didn't die. This enemy, two of them died. They got ragdoll. Open the door. Is that gonna? 3 enemies died. Throw roar back on. So, nope, that guy was not armor stripped. Yeah, like, you know,
Delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it
you can do this. An Eximus is like the ideal for you. Like, you kind of want to leave Eximi alive almost, so they can be surrounded by enemies, because they actually have like the health amounts you'd need in order for other enemies to die most of the time. So you can get like some okay things going with that. But yeah, it being his one scaling off current HP is so unbelievably sad, because there's no reason it shouldn't scale off max. Like, having to like go into a group of enemies and be like, cool, yeah, I've stripped all their armor and now I need to figure out which one took the least damage or is the least damage of them, because otherwise all the enemies don't die, even if they're primed with viral and I have roar going, and you know, like, it's just, don't kill the Eximus to kill the Eximus. Don't kill the Eximus to kill the regular enemies. Yeah, it's so many steps to like get nothing done.
Prepare for life support.
Like, legitimately, like, the little death cubes on this utility build are like actually doing more. Like, I'd almost be better off just spamming his 4 against these enemies with like the viral primers. Because like his 4 with the viral primers are doing decently with roar. Until I see like an Eximus, and then I could pop them, and that'll kill a couple of guys in a hallway. But his 4 is still line of sight, so it's like not like this works on like the vast majority of cases. And like some people will be fine with like just like, oh yeah, it pops the Eximus. But like, I don't know, man. Are we really having that much trouble with Eximi in 2025? Like, and like some tiles like that is just like totally not feasible to really use his abilities. But like, yeah, if you're like viral priming the enemies, like you could just skip a step on his 1 and just use his 4, I guess. Just like dump 150 energy on just like regular guys if you were looking to like deal damage with it. So like if you get this in ETA, thankfully those enemies are weak to radiation, so you can probably like use it just fine. But like, man, it's not a well, just don't pick him and just like do anything else type of thing for ETA EDA. But it is like just sad that he's not allowed to do more. For Angst has the new attenuation stuff, so the armor will be stripped and everything, but it will not do too much damage to them after that. I will need more air support because our KPM right now is like barely over 50.
Life support activated.
But yeah, the abilities just perform so poorly. The survivability is pretty good. Survivability is not bad. It is worth noting that this tile I will leave as soon as I possibly can. There are so many walls on this tile, and it will just completely remove your ability to really do much of anything. All the while, Angst is just going to like be following me around.
When you are ready,
Heading back to a room that's a little more open, like this one is fine and good. Yeah, the damage output that you're getting from, obviously, like, your damage will go down as you get closer to, like, the lower end of health. Like, you're better off just, like, you know, just use, like, a melee weapon or whatnot. Your 4 does, like, okay damage to the Acolyte as well. Yeah, there we go. 2x combo, attack and lug, an MR9 weapon that the free-to-play has. You know. You know. It is what it is. At least his 4 generates plenty of orbs, so spamming it is actually relatively reasonable. As long as the enemies are dying. If they're not, then you're in really hot water at that point.
I've delivered onboard capsule.
Yeah, the XMI you can use your one on. Or Loki put in way more work than Smite. Yeah. It's, you know, it is what it is. You can see the XMI got a couple of, not everybody, but a couple of enemies there. There's like a little line of enemies that died because there was an Eximus. So that's something. There's an Eximus there. You know, it's happening. Throw Roar back up. Yeah, you really are better off just like spamming the 4. Once you get to the point where like we're like spreading viral on every enemy and everything else, like the regular enemies are like such a waste of your time. Like maybe throw your one at an XMI. And like, man, just like the amount of energy necessary for this for the very mediocre damage output. Like if you have a good gun, just use that instead. And like you need Roar obviously for this to really do much of anything. And hit the Eximus with R1. Yeah, it's better than before. It is better than before. And like, you know, I can spend 400 energy and kill a room of, well, okay. Spend 600 energy and kill a room of just random mooks. But man, that doesn't feel great. There's the one. I killed 3 other enemies. Very nice. Like, you know, especially coming off of the other thing in this update, which is Noko. Like, you do just the easy one-to-one comparison there, and you're like, what's going on with the Oberon rework? And, like, that's not to mention all the unfavorable Warframe comparisons he has just elsewhere, right? But yeah, just multicasting down these guys. I'm at 520 kills. Which is like, what is that, like 70 KPM or so? Just like, yeah, just double casting the 300 energy into these enemies. Because it is 155 energy per forecast. Because I'm not using my 1 with it. Throwing 4 out there. But yeah, thankfully Equilibrium exists. If we couldn't Equilibrium the energy here, oh boy, would this be completely untenable. And battery with R3 is really making it a lot more possible to hold as much energy as we need to spam out here, too. A couple enemies died there with an Eximus. But yeah, your 1 removes an Eximus. Your 4 can kill the enemies when they're viral primed. And after a couple casts at this level, that'll fall off pretty fast. Thankfully, again, like I said, the Murmur, if you're taking this to EDA... are going to be weak to radiation, so it should be fine there. But it's dire. It's dire. I don't know why his 4 and his 1 aren't really allowed to be like good and like need all of this stuff for like this honestly blech, performance. Because, I mean, it's 10 minutes, we're under 70 KPM, right? Like, his abilities just can't... They can't really do it. And, like, he's not a new player, Warframe, because I know some people forget that Oberon's farming location got changed. He's, like, deep in Railjack now in, like, these side objectives. So, like, it's saying, like, a new player will just have him... Which, while true now because of the update giving everyone an Oberon for free, is a thing, does not remain true long term. So, like, while your MR0 friend might enjoy them for the time being, they just aren't, like, a long-term viable investment for any kind of a new player either. And, as I said before, their ability to support is fine. Like, health regen is a thing that exists, the armor is a thing that exists, just most Warframes get nothing out of that. But yeah, that's Oberon. It's unfortunate. He's better than he was. But he's fighting for low B rank. Low B rank, high C rank is an improvement from like the D rank that he was at before, but I really was hoping for more. I don't know why everyone seems to think that the GOAT is back. I think we're playing different versions of Warframe, maybe. And that wraps up today's video. Thanks so much to all of the patrons for supporting the channels, especially our $10 plus patrons: Atheon, Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Inuvan, Brutus Salazar, Keanu Lathra, Club World 3, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Avon, James Harthorn, JC4 Science, Josh, Luzanth, Malagux Williams, Mark Smith, Mikakel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Tamrielic Wastelander, Tester ZWP, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars About It 01, and Zeraphir. And of course, all of the $5 and below patrons as well. You are all also, of course, much appreciated. We have a lot going on with the end of the year updates beginning, so expect to see a lot of videos about that as various rebalances and new content arrive. And of course, more videos if the streamathon ever ends.